While out riding on his skateboard with reckless abandon, Bart is hit by a car driven by Mr. Burns. While Burns and his assistant, Waylon Smithers Jr., bicker about what to do about him, his soul floats out of his body and he ascends a luminous stairway to heaven. He watches the rest of the Simpsons' ancestors, including great-grandpa Simpson, strangling a young Abraham. When Bart spits over the edge, the stairway turns into a chute, and Bart descends directly to hell. After the devil looks over his case history on his computer, he sees that Bart is not due to arrive in hell for nearly another century. As he begins to regain consciousness, the devil tells him to continue to sin. Bart wakes up in a hospital bed with Homer, Marge, Lisa, Maggie, and a strange man hovering over him. Asking the strange man who he is, he introduces himself as Lionel Hutz, attorney at law. Lionel presents Homer with his card and tells him if he wants to make a lot of money to give him a call. Marge quickly rejects Hutz's offer, saying they're not interested in suing anyone, and demands he leave at once. After he leaves, Dr. Hibbert arrives to give out his prognosis and that Bart's injuries are minor. He advises Marge not to overmother Bart too much, and Homer is hesitant to sue Mr. Burns. Acting on his lawyer's advice, Mr. Burns offers Homer money to ensure he does not take legal action against him, but he only offers Homer a paltry of $100. He turns it down because it barely covers the medical bill. Burns takes this as an attempt to buy Homer to make a fast buck, so he angrily throws him out of his office. Shaken from that encounter, Homer wipes himself with the business card Hutz gave him at the hospital, which is a trick sponge. Homer decides to take Lionel Hutz up on his offer. After learning that Homer is going to sue him, Mr. Burns becomes furious and prepares to fire him. After Smithers reminds him that firing a man whose son he hit with a car would be bad for his image, Burns' option is to settle the lawsuit in court or talk the Simpsons out of it. At Hutz's office, he assures Homer that if he does exactly what Hutz says, he can get a settlement for $1 million, of which he gets 50% as part of his fee. However, in order to succeed, Bart has to lie about the extent of his injuries. To further stack the deck in their favor, Hutz uses the legal testimony of a shady doctor, Nick Riviera, to come up with his own diagnosis. Though he succeeds and puts Bart in bandages, Marge is skeptical of his medical qualifications and is convinced that it is dishonest. She decries Dr. Riviera as a quack for exaggerating Bart's condition and quickly confronts Hutz for his actions. Marge immediately reminds Homer that Dr. Hibbert has been their family physician for years, determined Bart will make a quick recovery. The only restitution she would demand from Burns is for him to pay Bart's medical bills and make an apology for the accident. When Homer tries to denounce Dr. Hibbert by claiming him to be too boring, Marge sees the first warning signs of his greed and is horrified by the fact he is encouraging their son to lie. Later on at the Simpson house, Hutz coaches Bart on exaggerating his condition to help win the jury's sympathy. However, Marge's suspicions doesn't go unnoticed, as Lisa also sees what they're doing is wrong and dishonest, and make their objections clear that they're against suing Mr. Burns and demands Bart tells the truth in court. Hutz quickly dismisses them, but he claims in what he does is truth does little to convince Marge and Lisa otherwise. They're more convinced that everything they're doing is still lying and dishonest. Both Bart and Mr. Burns present exaggerated, outrageous memories of the accident on their stand. Bart's story is that he was peacefully playing when Burns, in the luxury car of death, went out of his way to intentionally hit children. Burns' story is that incorrigible Simpson youngster darted out of nowhere, and it was hit accidentally, and Burns cried out to God to spare Bart and take him as he is old, and the accident interrupted his plans to deliver toys to the orphanage. However, the civil jury is more accepting of Bart's fabricated story and shows sympathy for him, whereas Marge and Lisa show their shared disgust for Hutz because they're the only ones in courtroom still convinced that he made Bart lie. Things seem to be looking up for Hutz and Homer. After the trial, Mr. Burns is seen yelling at his lawyers for their incompetence and failing to curry the civil jury's favor because they hate him. His main lawyer suggests an out-of-court settlement between him and the Simpsons. Mr. Burns then orders him to bring Homer and Marge to his house once to do so. In a last attempt to get them to drop the lawsuit, Burns invites Homer and Marge to his mansion. He offers them $500,000 to settle the case and then leaves the room to let them discuss it. Burns listens in on their conversation in the next room by looking through the cutout eyes of a painting. Back in the living room, Marge is feeling guilty for being dishonest and lying in court. She pleads with Homer to drop the case and accept the money. Mr. Burns has a panic attack when he hears Homer openly and abrasively object to her request. He demands to know why Marge wants him to accept the settlement money and not wait to be paid the full $1 million like Hutz promised them. Angered by this, Marge reveals she and Lisa were against suing Mr. Burns from the start. She says they would have been much happier with settling the case than them rather than let this go to court. Marge also wants Homer to accept the generous settlement so they can move on with their lives and get Hutz out of their lives. He refuses by saying that he knows Mr. Burns is going to lose the case and will have to pay them the full $1 million anyway. Having enough, Marge admits she dislikes the situation for what it's becoming, including his greed, the falsified testimony, the dishonest shifty lawyers, and using fake doctors as shady medical qualifications. Mr. Burns overhears that Homer and Hutz are using a quack and he gets an idea to win the case. He turns with Smithers just in time to catch Homer and Marge arguing. He maintains his stance in telling her that waiting to win the full $1 million is the right thing to do and doesn't care if she and Lisa are uncomfortable in this. Marge still insists they should accept the money because Hutz is a dishonest, fraudulent man who will leave them with less than what he promised them. She closes the argument by saying if the decision were left to her instead of Homer, she'd gladly accept the $500,000 settlement so they can pay off Bart's medical bills and have Mr. Burns apologize for the accident so she can send Hutz on his way out with nothing. Mr. Burns announces that he has withdrawn his offer and claims they should let a jury choose in court. He then sends Homer and Marge on their way by releasing the hounds. The next day in court, Mr. Burns' lawyer calls an unprepared Marge to the stand. Much to the shock of everyone, after taking the oath to tell the truth, she nervously sits on the witness stand. Burns' lawyer starts off his interrogation by asking Marge her opinion on Dr. Hibbert. Relieved, she explains she's proud of the fine work that Dr. Hibbert has done. Marge admits that Hibbert has been there for her family ever since she became a mother and knows he's a good physician with real medical qualifications. Soon Mr. Burns' lawyer employs a dirty tactic in feigning shock about hearing expert testimony from Dr. Rivera, and this makes Hutz extremely nervous when he catches people staring at him in suspicion after hearing Marge's testimony crediting Dr. Hibbert as the Simpsons' real family physician. When Mr. Burns' lawyer asks her about her opinion on Dr. Rivera, Marge is hesitant to talk, and this makes him very angry with her. She tries to plead the fifth by saying her mother's advice in not talking about someone when she doesn't have anything nice to say. Homer has hopes about what Marge said will hold up. They can still win the case. However, Hutz glumly admits to him it won't do anything for them. He reveals his concerns about losing the case to Burns as she continues refusing to lie and testifies against them by telling the truth. Mr. Burns' lawyer asks his question on Marge's opinion on Dr. Rivera again, and reminds her that she is under oath. In her testimony, Marge tells the truth by denouncing Dr. Rivera is a quack who isn't a qualified doctor and outlines Dr. Hibbert's earlier prognosis and how limited Bart's injuries actually were. Overhearing this, Homer curses out in anger at her testimony as his chances to win the $1 million begins to slip away. While watching Maggie, Lisa's the only one proud of Marge for doing the right thing by telling the truth. Mr. Burns' lawyer decides to play the sympathy card by asking Marge about Bart's mental anguish and her opinion on her lawyer. Out of spite from Homer in going through the lawsuit against her wishes, Marge abrasively denounces Hutz as a greedy, dishonest, and fraudulent man who isn't a qualified lawyer. She feels that he and Homer both made Bart commit perjury by lying about being in an intense anguish from his injuries. He was really fine. Homer continues listening in disbelief, and Bart feels betrayed by Marge. Mr. Burns' lawyer continues playing the sympathy card by asking Marge to tell the court the dollar amount and the hardships she went through with the accident. She admits to the hardships of the accident, a value worth $5 that they would have paid Bart every week to take the trash out if he had been able to. Marge admits the trouble he cost her with 3 days he stayed home recuperating from the minor injuries. As a result, Marge's honest testimony destroys Hutz's case and the family gets nothing, though Bart receives good treatment for his injuries. After the case, an overjoyed Mr. Burns offers Homer another check, and though it isn't as generous as his first one, he believes it's fair, $0. Realizing they lost the case, Hutz tells Homer they should take it, and he shudders in dejection. That night at dinner, a downbeat and angry Homer mentally blames Marge for costing him the $1 million while maintaining his composure and being polite when she asks him if he wants dinner. Bart breaks the silence by wishing to have won the money from Burns. He's silenced by Marge, saying she did the right thing to stop the case by telling the truth. Bart mentions there's a lot of things they could have done with the money, even if what they did was dishonest, and Marge stands her ground by saying honesty is more valuable than gold. Having enough of hearing the conversation, Homer goes to Moe's to drown his sorrows and is unwilling to return home. Marge suggests what he's about to do from her women's intuition and follows him. At the bar, he listens as Moe tries to console him, telling him that rich people aren't happy anyway. Homer ignores him, still believing that he would have been much happier with the money because he could have bought a lot of things for it with his family. He is unsure if he should come home as he continues blaming Marge for betraying him with his testimony for costing him the $1 million. She arrives at Moe's and apologizes to him for her testimony. Marge admits they had argued over the family's financial issues in the past. However, it wasn't up to this level it got to when he decided to sue Burns over Bart's minor injuries. However, Homer says this isn't about the family's financial issues that he's angry and depressed over. He admits it's Marge that he's very angry with because she betrayed him with her testimony by telling the truth in court that led to her costing him his only chance to win the $1 million and better the family's lives. Her testimony allowed Mr. Burns to win the lawsuit against him and left them with nothing. Homer is unsure if he could continue loving her after all this. She, Moe, and the bar's denizens are shocked by it. Marge encourages Homer to look her in the eye and follows his heart. When he does, he starts her feet and her body, but he's still convinced of his own anger. Homer gulps down a beer to help his brain make the final decision. When he reaches Marge's head, his brain says who is Homer fooling. He loves Marge, like always. The couple hugs, the bar's customers cheer. Moe marks down the next round of beer.